You know how we were talking before about like, you can get into boating for less than a trip to Disney.
Yeah.
I looked up what the average Disney trip costs for a family of 4.
Uh-huh.
Google said it's like $5,000. So now we need to call this episode, you can get into boating for less than half of a trip
to Disney.
Welcome. The original title of this episode was How to Get into Sailboating If You Don't Have Any Money. But then we switched it to How to Get into Boating for the Price of a Week-Long Trip to Disney. But then I looked up how much a week-long trip to Disney costs. So now the new title of this episode is How to Get into Sailboating for Less Than Half of the Cost of a Trip to Disney. The idea for this episode came because we were taking some friends out on our transitional boat, Moonlight, which was you said 24 foot sloop. And when we talked about how much the boat had cost, they were surprised because they thought, boating was a fun thing that they would never do because it was a thing that only people with a lot of money did. And they were surprised at just how cheap that boat was.
Yes.
And so we thought, why not make an episode if the only barrier you have to boating is the financial part? Here's some tips and ideas for how it can be maybe more manageable than you might have thought.
Okay. So we had a Nunsuch 26 named Kitty Hawk that we were putting up for sale. And which meant that during that period, which was in the early spring, like still snow on the ground, from that period until the boat was sold, we couldn't use it, really. I mean, we could clean it up and get it pretty and ready to go, but we couldn't use it because we were keeping it pristine for any potential buyers. And then after it was sold, the idea we would spend some time looking for the next boat. And I knew that could be many months. And so I wanted something for one season that we could sail around, not spend a lot of money, have a good time. And one of the main reasons is I knew that if I didn't have a boat to sail in the spring, that as soon as Kitty Hawk was sold, I probably would have bought the first boat I saw. And I didn't want to rush the process.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought this boat as a transitional boat. It served its purpose. It was to basically give me my sailing time and not break the bank. The idea was for it to be economical.
We would joke all the time about being like the shabbiest looking boat in the cove when we had Moonlight, but it was a really, really great boat. You could fit 3 people on it super comfortably,
Mm-hmm.
4 people if you really like each other a lot. It had the little porta potty, it had a little sink. Like you could bring a cooler with lunches and have an awesome day on the water.
Yeah.
Our fun per dollar with that boat was insane.
Oh, great.
Cool. So tell us, where did you buy Moonlight?
I found it on eBay. It was in New Rochelle, New York.
Mm-hmm.
Found it on eBay. Bid $300 and something on it, and with some fees that the charity charged, it came out to be $630 for the whole thing.
Cool.
Purchase price.
So you got a sloop, which is a boat with a jib and a mainsail, mm-hmm. with an outboard motor included for $600.
9 horsepower Honda motor, outboard motor.
Yeah, for $600.
Which ran.
Yep.
We didn't know it was on its last legs, but it did run.
Yes.
Used it for half the season before it died. Yeah. Some of the best deals for used sailboats, and I mean, this is the category of the boat was in the category of a very used boat. It was not, it was not in tip-top condition. It needed work, etc. But I found that you can get a lot of good deals in the Northeast, especially on eBay in the mid to late fall. So, start looking in September, October. The best deals are like in November, because these are the people who are trying to unload their boats because they don't want to pay for another winter storage. And I think that's why we got Moonlight so inexpensively. The owner was moving to Georgia, and Moonlight was not going with him.
Oh, poor Moonlight.
Well, he said the place he was going to was really, I mean, it was on the coast, but the boating he was going to be doing was in a really shallow area. So he was going to be like running a catamaran, a Hobie Cat or something.
Okay.
That was where he was going with it. But
So
eBay was a great source that time of year for used sailboats.
yeah. Okay. So that's 600 right there. And then how much did you have to pay to keep it on the mooring?
I bought the mooring for, was it 300 or 350 bucks? It was used. And that was the anchor with a float. And I had to add a pennant to it with a flag, which was nothing. I think the harbor master had one lying around. He just gave to me. He's like that.
And did it cost anything to get the mooring like put in the cove, or was it just the cost of the mooring itself?
That was just the cost of the mooring. The fee to have a mooring in the cove is for that particular place, which was out in the river, not in North Cove, was $159, I think, for the season. And as part of that fee, the harbor master launches or puts it in the water. Puts it in the spot for you because it's heavy. You don't.
Okay, you buy the mooring ball, you give it to the harbor master, and he puts it in the water for you.
Yeah, they place it.
Okay, so we're like just over $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's buying the boat, getting something to put it on, and putting it there. So if you own a boat,
right,
up in New England where we are, you can have it on the mooring all season long. And then it has to go somewhere else in the winter. So where did you put Moonlight? Yeah.
Winter storage. We brought it up to the same marina that we kept Kitty Hawk at up in Portland, Connecticut, and the same one we now keep Shearwater in. And that was the fee for that was, I want to say it was $630 to store it for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And that was stored with the mast on, because there's extra fee if you want them to use the crane, take your mast down and put it in the shed. But we just left it on because we didn't, it's cheaper that way.
Okay. If someone doesn't want to spend the money to store their boat at a boatyard in the winter, what are some things they can do to bring that cost even lower than Moonlight? Because you said it was what, $350 to store it?
No, it was 600.
Sorry, 6.
Right.
Okay.
So a couple things. If the boat has a trailer or can be put on a trailer, you could take the boat home. You could bring it to a self-storage place. They often have outside parking areas for small boats. Some boatyards, like the boatyard we use, they have a special rate if you have your own trailer, and they just park them up in the back all side by side with covers on them, because they can really get them in close together if they're on trailers. So you get a special.
What sort of sailboats are trailerable?
They would be smaller ones. Usually the biggest boat you see that's trailerable is probably 25, 26 feet. And they have what's called a swing keel. Smaller boats that could have a full keel. But the problem is, having a keel on the boat makes the height of the boat on a trailer rather high. But some of them swing out of the way. The people want to look up like a Catalina 22 swing keel version, because they also had a fixed keel version. But you get the idea of sticks out the bottom of the boat, but then they crank it up and pull it up so it's straight across the bottom. So it only draws the width of the thing, which is 18 inches. They're great for trailering.
Yeah.
Boats
cool. So you theoretically, if you only had a budget of $2,000, you could knock $600 off right there just by parking it in the driveway.
If you have a driveway, you could put the boat in, Watch out for the homeowners association if you have one.
Yeah. And then, so that's, your boat is somewhere all year long.
Yeah.
What about running costs of the boat? So a sailboat, you can get away with a lot less fuel, right? How much would you say you spent on fuel?
I think I spent around $200 in gasoline for the whole season.
Awesome. That's legit.
Mm. And I used the boat every
Oh yes.
every possible moment. So which is every weekend, and then some weeknights, because we did the Thursday night races a lot at North Cove Yacht Club.
Yeah.
And I did a trip to Block Island for the off soundings thing. So that was had to do a lot of motoring in that, because they when we went to start the race at Watch Hill, there was no wind. So after a few hours, they said, okay, we're going to start the race over by the entrance to Block Island Harbor. And there wasn't a breath of wind. So everybody had to motor over to Block Island. And I'm glad I had enough fuel.
Yeah, because we don't always bring a lot. We got burnt a couple
I had
times.
it was 2 of those plastic 5-gallon tanks, with the hose that comes out and goes to the engine. I had 2 of those, and I'm glad I had 2, because 1 wouldn't have made it.
Oof.
But I filled up again at Block Island, and then I was fine.
Yeah. So that's running the boat all season long, buying the boat.
Yeah. And part of that cost was, we also, when we got the boat, originally it was November, moved it from New Rochelle to Saybrook, sailed the whole way, and then had to motor up the Connecticut River against a 40 to 50 mile an hour wind. So our boat that in the calm motored along at 5.1 knots was up the river at 1 knot.
I'm surprised you're not still there.
That was we went through the 2 tanks we had, plus I brought a reserve tank for that trip, because I thought it might be a problem to motor all the way up there. So I'm glad we had that 3rd tank. So there was somewhere between 10 and 15 gallons of fuel just for that run up the river. But yeah, that $200 is probably generous. I probably didn't use all that, but that's my estimate.
Okay. So let's say this hypothetical person has found their boat on eBay. It's awesome. They've brought it to wherever they are, and it needs some fixing. Where are some places that you can get cheap parts, sales, things like that? Okay.
I'll answer the last part first. So sales, there are kind of like consignment shops for sales. So people will, put their old sales up on these sites, and if they sell, the site gets a commission or whatnot. But if you're willing to put up with state sales that are stained or, need some work, you can get them really cheap. Hopefully the boat you're buying comes with at least 1 set of decent sails. Even if they're not decent, at least then you'll know what size you need to get to replace them. So that's good for sales. Now, for other parts of the boat, some of the stuff you really need to go to a boat supply store, but some things you don't. To give you an example, if you're going to change like the electric panel on the boat, if there's an electric service on the boat, if it's that size, you want to buy marine grade stuff, consumer marine grade stuff. So then there's websites like Defender or West Marine and lots of others, but I couldn't even begin to name them all, the places that I bought stuff from. But they are kind of specialty items. Then there's things where you can, if you're handy. I was watching a sailboat channel recently, and they talked about they wanted new spreader lights, and instead of buying the fancy yacht spreader lights to shine down, they went to an auto parts store and got some fog lights for cars. Found some that were suitable to go on their things that they could waterproof themselves, and they bought 4, and they spent like $40 for the whole thing. As a contrast, I just bought one of those mast lights for Shearwater from a boat supply store, and it was $200.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would be
I mean,
100%
it
why I
was
went there.
LED. It was LED, very nice. But yes, it's very different sort of approach.
Yeah.
And but there are a lot of things where you can get away with using non-boat things, but there's some things you really want to get the marine grade stuff.
Okay.
So general thoughts. Can I throw some general thoughts at the end?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. If you're buying a cheap boat on eBay, you're looking at pictures, but basically you're buying it sight unseen. Don't pay so much that you're going to be really worried about whether or not you get hoodwinked on the deal,
Yeah.
because it might look like it floats, but that's only because they took a picture at low tide and it's sitting on the bottom. I'm making that up, but who knows? Who knows? When I bought Moonlight, I put the bid in and everything, and I thought, well, the worst that can happen is, I got to move the boat out of their place. But if the boat is just completely unsuitable for some reason, I'm just going to put it back on eBay. So I went and I went down to get the boat, and I called up Boat US and put just a liability insurance policy on it, and
how much is the Boat US liability insurance?
for that size boat, it was great.
Not very much, right?
It was I think $180 for the year.
Which is like, yeah. Do they do towing too, or just?
That wasn't towing. That was strictly liability policy. Basically, my big fear was I leave the marina with the boat and it sinks in the channel, right?
Oh, and then you get in trouble.
And I got to pay to get it out of the way because I'm blocking the channel.
Love it.
And then plus, there's a gas can, which means possibly a fuel spill. Anyway, that little insurance policy that I got from Boat US gave like $900,000 in environmental damage insurance. And I don't know, maybe the policy was good. I don't know, but I felt better having it.
Yeah. Well, peace of mind is good.
Yeah.
You're going to edit this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
Just like last time.
Just like last time. Love it. Okay.
Personally, if you look at boats that are down in the southwest or the south coast, southeast coast of Florida, Florida, southeastern. Yeah, let's do that again. Ready? Okay.